Hello, everyone, and welcome to theCUBE studios in Palo Alto and the Google Cloud Partner AI series. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight. We've got two great guests for this next segment. I would like to welcome Miles Ward, the CTO of SADA. Welcome, Miles.
Howdy.
And Eliot Danner, Managing Director, Google Distributed Cloud Sales and Technology. Welcome, Eliot.
Morning.
So I'm actually going to start with you, Eliot, and the big picture, because there's so much hype around AI. But now it seems as though customers are really focused on practical implementation rather than just imagining what might be possible. From your perspective, what is driving this mode?
You know, I think we went through sort of the era of experimentation, and now we're seeing the era of outcome expectation. Right, and so the mode that we're in right now, I think, is the sort of middle phase of customers going, okay, we've experimented with it, we've got some ideas about what we could do, we didn't actually see the results we expected in terms of actual revenue from the experimentation. So now we need to get into a more outcomes-driven approach. I think we've also seen a lot of organizations discover that at the end of the day, AI is most powerful in unlocking the potential energy in their data. And the only way to really do that is to have a data strategy that goes along with the AI strategy. So we've sort of gone from experimentation to outcomes and then realizing the foundational things that are required in order to drive those outcomes.
Mm-hmm. So Eliot, SADA has been a Google Cloud partner for 25 years with 8 Partner of the Wins. Congratulations. In fact, you're in town now for the Google Cloud North America Tech Forum.
That's right.
What in your mind has kept this alliance so durable?
Sure. From the beginning, I think the first product we interacted with was the yellow search appliance box, right? So it gives you some context for the duration we're talking here.
Yep, that's right.
And I remember, having been a Google employee, setting foot the first time in the Google data centers. There's just something a little different. The level of pressure and the complexity and the challenges that Google as a business had to face has hardened the technology systems that they allow us to vend out to customers. It lets me be very, very comfortable making high bar promises to our customers because I know the technical systems are beyond reproach.
So Eliot, Google has the world-class AI stack, but as you started this conversation, we're really moving to connecting it to business outcomes. So how do you see partners like SADA bridging that gap?
Yeah, so we were just, and I'll just for a second say, SADA's really been with us from the beginning. So one of the things when we think of like, who do we want to experiment with a little bit, SADA comes quickly to mind. But I was talking about this yesterday. One of the areas where partners bring a tremendous amount of value is that our partners know the inside and outside of our customers' business just extremely well. Google builds world-class products and services, but adapting those products and services to solve the individual business challenges, the outcomes that our customers are looking for, partners have that deeper expertise in the line of business, and that's where they become really critical. And SADA's differentiated itself by really knowing inside and out our joint customers and having the answers both when customers ask, but also when we ask where we need to adapt our products in order to match the market.
So Miles, you have said that the biggest mistake that companies make is treating AI like a science experiment. I love it.
So silly.
But how do you get clients to think beyond that and to think, as Eliot is talking, really connecting it to those outcomes, think big, think impact, and focus on tying it directly to P&L?
Every company everywhere, any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. This is maybe sort of genie magic. It's dangerous. It does things you don't expect. And so I think a lot of the experiments were not only couched in those terms, designed as sort of science projects, no real threshold for success, no measurement in many cases, but they were also critically placed way outside of the blast radius of where the business actually makes money, where the critical data sits. So of course, as a business analyst looking at the results of this, you're just out in the weeds instead of right in the middle of the company. So we've helped businesses take a really pragmatic approach. It's just not useful to experiment out in the periphery. You've got to work on the place where you make money or reduce costs. That's just the core of how every business is measured. And the more that we're thoughtful about the real center point of our customers, the more positive effect we can have.
So let's talk about legacy software, which is exceedingly complicated and so overwhelming for so many organizations. Eliot, how is Google Cloud helping technology leaders modernize and make sense of this messy middle?
Yeah, so this is the perennial question when we talk to customers. How do I modernize my legacy investments and not completely scrap them? Right. So one of the things we've really...
Is it even possible?
In most cases, yes, but there are some things that are sort of too far gone. Actually, going back to the science fair thing, I'll just share, everyone on my team has a sticker that says no more science fair projects. And that actually, that comes from sort of this science experiment methodology. Why that relates to legacy technologies, I think a lot of legacy migrations rapidly turn into the what could we do versus what should we do. So when I think about Google's approach to this, we've built the expertise in the best practices for taking data and workflows from one set of applications to another. And then we look to partners like SADA to apply those to the specific customizations and the specifics of the enterprise environment that they're going into. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons SADA is so valuable to us and our partner ecosystem in general is that we need those signals. What are the legacy enterprise environments customers have? How do we take those legacy enterprise environments, figure out what actually matters versus sort of what would be fun to do, and focus on getting the things that actually matter from where they are today to where they need to be?
The things that are fun are so fun.
The things that are fun are so fun. And as an engineer, I love the fun stuff. But the reality is business outcomes are not always in the fun stuff. Sometimes, but not always.
Yeah, the paychecks don't come from parlor tricks, right? And these things are incredible at doing little parlor tricks, right?
They're incredible at it, yeah.
So, we a great example of the kind of collaboration that you're talking about, Agentspace, really a super powerful platform, so much potential in helping businesses orchestrate that work. We worked together with Google in the earliest incarnations of this product, working with very path-breaking customers who were ready to take on the work of being kind of those alpha testers. We put dozens of feedback requests into the system to work together to get the product to where it is. And a lot of that was about, kind of what are the internal data systems that Agentspace connects to so that you can really get through to the end goal, which is all this stuff working together in a way that moves the business forward.
Well, and Agentspace is a great example of how an organization that has an investment in legacy platforms can unlock the data that's in those legacy platforms, turn it into outcomes without necessarily needing to go through the pain of a replatforming effort, right? And so when we talk about connectors in Agentspace, a lot of that is around making sure that customers can invest in outcomes rather than investing in a massive replatforming effort first.
So actually, let's talk about outcomes, because Miles, you have said that it's context is what matters,
100%.
because everyone can have access to models but really it is about the data and the processes. That's where the real advantage lies. Can you talk about an example of how you've engineered that into an AI project?
Sure, great example. I think everybody's realized these things are sort of exceptional at eliminating tedium, right? And all of us in all of our businesses have figured out, some really abhorrent little steps that are required in the connection between the ask from the customer and the delivery of value. So,
and it will write all your emails for you too.
It's going to summarize that email and then de-summarize it for my boss.
It's magic.
It's totally magic. So, customer of ours, the Sherlock Company, every time you've ever watched a video on any of the streaming platforms, right? What movie am I going to watch next? There's a little screenshot from the movie at the top, right? But which still frame is it, right? In this action movie, should it be when he flies out of the way of the plane, or should it be the shot when he catches the girlfriend? Like, what's the key frame? Well, okay, look, like there's 24 frames a second times an hour and a half for every one of these movies, and there's how many movies are there exactly? And you need it cut into how many different formats and templates and types? So you're talking millions of individual photos have to be, yes, hand curated.
Yep.
And so that's exactly the kind of job that you want a system like this to take on. We were able to use the video intelligence APIs from Google, Gemini APIs, to be able to literally reduce that now to an automatic process of suggesting what are the best key frames out of every movie that they receive. They do that real time now. They can do that in the meeting with the customer instead of starting a laborious process that takes weeks and weeks. So it's really made them much more nimble. That technology stack, the combination of automatic video processing, search indexing, making that easily visible in user interfaces, we've now applied to dozens of customers.
Right, because you can see how that is applicable. That's a media and entertainment, but you can see how it's applicable to a lot of industries.
That's right.
Almost every organization has some level of media. Right? That's one of the things I think is most interesting about AI, actually. It's like if you abstract the industry from the use case, the use cases are very broadly applicable, right? In many cases, like organizations of any complexity have media, they have audio, they have large amounts of text, they have legacy data, they have all kinds of different things. And so when we talk about this, I think we have a tendency to say, well, it's an industry-specific use case. Absolutely, there are industry-specific use cases, but we shouldn't assume that in order to leverage the technology that solves an industry-specific problem, you have to necessarily be in that industry.
Exactly. Well, let's move to another industry, though, public safety, because I know you have another great use case with Viiz Communications that has used your joint solution to reduce non-emergency call times. So I want to hear you talk about the human impact of that, too.
Yeah, anybody who's ever dialed 911, it's probably among the scariest times of your afternoon, except for when it's not, and you're just trying to figure out how to get, somebody to clear this flood, or
non-trivial problem.
And business, governments and state, local agencies everywhere, they really struggle with kind of call routing and understanding how to get people to put in the right digits as they sort of find the stuff they're looking for. So very often, if you don't know who else to call, you call 911. So working together with a couple of city groups, this first implementation built on Google's Contact Center as a Service and the CCAI tooling, we have a whole bunch of depth there, and so made the implementation of that very straightforward. They were able to reduce, out of all the calls that come into this group, some 60% of them are not emergencies. So you have to just do that number over, right? That's 60% more time to carefully deal with actual emergencies. And we're correctly categorizing 98.8% of those calls. So that really sets up, their human auditors were nowhere near that level of performance, right? So being able to catch a user where they are, bring them to the point of value they need really quickly, and helping the folks that are actually in an emergency get very detailed, careful care from clear professionals with the human touch, that's a huge benefit of working in this way.
And that's a great example of not doing a science fair project and instead focusing on an outcome.
That's right in the middle.
That's right. I mean, that's right there where it actually matters to people at the end of the day.
But you really have to trust it. I mean this because this is in some cases a matter of life or death. Human lives could be at stake. So how, Eliot, are you ensuring that we can that the AI underpinnings of it can be trusted in such a high stakes environment?
So grounding and making sure that our AI is linkable back to provable facts has been a key core component of AI development at Google. It's an area that we're an absolute leader in, and so we've spent a tremendous amount of time making sure that you can sort of walk back the AI to a specific grounded element, that grounded element is something that's been incorporated and really reducing hallucinations as aggressively as possible. That's sort of on the tech side. On the regulatory side, we've also spent a tremendous amount of time working on ensuring regulatory compliance, including sovereign compliance with our AI tools. The reality is regulatory compliance is or regulatory burden is increasing, not decreasing. And so making sure that our AI tools remain compliant, let our customers get factual answers, let our customers make sure that they can walk back how those facts sort of ground to the data in their organization, and making sure that they're within the regulatory compliance boundary that they need to be in is critical.
Both of those are super important. I'll tell you, for a lot of our customers, there's something that's a lot more fundamental there. You remember the last time Gmail was down or search was down?
That's a good point.
That's weird. I can't remember one either.
Yeah.
These systems are mission critical, and they have to stay online, and
point.
Google's technical infrastructure does.
I think I would freak out. I don't even want to think about it.
It's how you know the internet doesn't work if
the
search
internet doesn't work
right?
because search is broken. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is a fundamental level of trust that's not just in the sort of new high-level application components that are being built, but in the how the pavement is poured, how the walls are built, like the real technical underpinnings that sit at the center of these things are incredible.
We've spent a lot of time building things from the ground up. When I think about what differentiates Google technology, it's really built from the ground up. And that means that we've considered stuff like that. Miles is exactly right. Like, we've considered the resiliency, reliability, we've considered regulatory compliance, we've considered grounding, we've considered a lot of these things. And we have that advantage because really everything that we've done is from the ground up.
So both of you, when you look across industries, what do you think differentiates the customers that are scaling effectively versus those that are spinning their wheels and playing with those science experience?
Eliot had
what your answer is.
Yeah, Eliot had a clear framing early that the data platform is just a crucial first ingredient. So it's sort of like showing up to the football game without your helmet. Like, that's gonna go badly for you. We have also a lot of customers, the difference for them has been creating connections in their business between the people who have the problem and their technical teams. I think sometimes this can be, it's so magical to build something so quickly that you can end up in conflict with IT. You're like, haha, I built this magic thing. I don't need you guys anymore. I can sort this stuff out on my own. You imagine I can build apps on my own? So like, we want that delight and the superpowers that are being given to employees to keep growing, but they've got to do that in concert with the folks that have the keys to the kingdom, have all the sort of internal data, have all the protection and authorization controls, all the responsibilities for compliance. So I think companies that are building good internal teams are making really great progress. And maybe a third bit that's important is they are setting objective criteria for success. Yes. They think ahead about where do we have to get before we're all going to be proud about this case study, where we're all going to be excited about the outcome. And it's not enough to like get a little better than the state of the art. For most of our customers, this is a 10-fold improvement, a 5-fold improvement, a real shift, so that they don't have to equivocate about the impact. It's like, of course you can see how good this is.
So I often say there is no magic, there's only work. And that's true in the AI era as well. The core thing that differentiates organizations that are successful from those that are sort of foundering in this is having a plan.
Okay,
and it's been true for the last 20 years I've been in tech. It's what differentiates things that work from things that don't. Things that work have a plan. Things that don't have a plan.
Well, and that gets back to something that you have talked about, Miles, in that if you can't measure performance on a task, then you really shouldn't start it.
Part of your plan.
Right, exactly. And you should know what the impact will be, and you should be able to measure it. So how do you help customers really set those baselines? Because I think that a lot of them struggle.
Oh, we're cheating. We've done it hundreds of times. So I just break out the dashboards that worked for the last customer and go, check it out. This is a fairly useful rule book. I think it's critical. It's critical. You can't test this kind of software. Test implies that it is deterministic, that it can do exactly what you expect. This stuff's not deterministic. You have to instead evaluate it. So we work together with customers to build the evaluation framework, the system they use to compare it to their other approaches, as opposed to thinking of it as a thing that absolutely correctly works or absolutely does not correctly work. And that evaluation approach, the history of having implemented this now across a bunch of different business domains, where there's some real lessons to be learned about how businesses that have very, very tight timelines on performance are maybe approaching these things different than folks that have really huge data sets to digest. So that combination of context and experience shortens the path to value for all of our customers.
Eliot, I want to go back to something that you were talking about in terms of governance and responsibility. And as you said, at Google Cloud, we've considered it. We have the foundations here, but other enterprises maybe don't have quite all of those foundations. So how do you help them innovate quickly, but also safely and responsibly?
I mean, this is why I joke, like, there's no magic, there's only hard work. Part of the hard work of doing these things correctly so that you've got the outcomes that you need in the compliance that you need with a view towards future compliance risks too, comes into really having a thought leadership or expertise on Google's side. We spend a tremendous amount of time interfacing with regulators, understanding the direction of these things. And so when we go talk to a customer with our partners, one of the things that we're discussing is how are we going to ensure that not only is this a solution that is going to give you the outcomes that you want, but it's also a solution that you're not going to have to scrap in the next 6 months because of an upcoming compliance concern or something along those lines. It also means that we've had to take a lot of our expertise in data management, which obviously goes back. I mean, if your mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, you have to have spent a fair amount of time thinking about data, right? A lot of our approach is to go back and sort of say, all right, how are we fundamentally looking at how this data is secured? How are we making sure that the AI has appropriate access, that the agents have appropriate access, but that we've got the right controls around it? And some of this is just expertise that we've built over the last 20-some years.
This is because Google is customer zero for every one of the technologies we're talking about. And they're a pesky customer. They have exabytes. They have exabytes of data to fuss with. They have billions of users to sort out. They got every map everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the scale of what they have to interface these technologies to, I promise, is bigger than every customer I'm ever going to work with. So they've already been there, right? They've got the battle scar. They go, oh, you definitely take a left at Albuquerque. It's the right way to go. That kind of structural guidance from somebody that's not, AI isn't being built and then handed over to customers. And good luck, folks. It's absolutely a fundamental part of all of the product innovation that's happening right now at Google. So we see that in terms of the increasing pace, right? The number of features that they have been able to ship in even just the last 6 months is pretty daunting, right? Like just reading all your stuff is kind of a heavy lift. Thankfully, I have AI to summarize it quite a bit. But that change rate, I think, belies for a lot of our customers that Google is certainly drinking this Kool-Aid, and they are absolutely setting up their customers to take the same kind of benefit.
All right, as we wrap up, I want you both to offer one piece of advice to our audience about how to approach AI in 2025. Miles, start with you.
Well, I mean, I agree with Eliot. Planning is critical. Planning is critical. Plans are useless, right? Like in 6 months from now, in 6 months from now, I promise you, all the technology is going to change. Every one of the building blocks is going to get different. So I think the critical piece for most of our customers is going to be having a very pragmatic view of what they're trying to get done. And that's a conversation, right? We can all work together to think through what is the most explicit way to move the business forward. I think having that pragmatic viewpoint sets them up to solve all the rest of the problems they'll encounter on the way.
Eliot?
I would sort of jokingly say plan for 2026 because it is October. But the other thing that I would say is really understanding what outcomes are going to make a difference in your organization is critical. And giving that, I would say, more expansive thought than organizations have applied in the past. So in the past, what are your plans for 2026? Well, it's to grow 2025 numbers 25% or something. I don't know, pick something. I think that there's more of an opportunity for organizations to say, if we were to really try, Google, we would call it a moonshot goal, but if we were really to try for a goal that is one step beyond sort of our traditional year-over-year planning, what would that look like? What are the outcomes necessary in order to drive that? And how are we going to leverage technology to deliver those outcomes?
Startups are being built right now with the intent of replacing whole company 100%. Functions.
Every whole companies in some cases.
Oh yeah, entire work. Yeah. Every company has to imagine you've just become one of those startups.
Yep, that's exactly
Time to put on that hat. Time to think about reinvention.
All right, I like it. Great advice. Miles and Eliot, thank you both so much for coming on this show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Google Cloud Partner AI Series. Stay tuned for more.